Welcome to Today in Random. I am Gemma, that is Angelica. Today we will be talking about the season finale of Killing Eve, Series 3, Episode 8, called...
Are you leading or am I?
That was great, not rehearsed at all.
So, what did you think of the episode?
I liked it. We did enjoy it, despite the fact that the season as a whole we were iffy about. The finale didn't save the season, in my opinion, but it was a good episode. I didn't mind rewatching it because I did mind rewatching the others because I haven't rewatched the others. But I did rewatch this one and I was somewhat enthralled by it, but we'll discuss more. I feel like the episode was good, but it wasn't great.
I really enjoyed it, like, so much. I was running up to Lugosh. Oh my god, it was such a good episode! I really loved it. I loved that. It felt like old Killing Eve episode.
I guess. I'm confused because I'm like, did I like it because the rest of the season wasn't so great, or did I like it because it was actually good? I think it was actually good, but was it better because the rest of the season wasn't good, or was it just good?
Who knows? I just remember really enjoying it and really noticing little things in the second when I watched it again, which I didn't have for like the other episodes.
True.
Not that I would want to watch them again, to be honest.
No.
But I really enjoyed this episode.
Well, let's divulge, shall we?
Yes. What did you think of this opening?
When I rethink about it, it's random. Because we did just learn, I think in the previous episode or the episode before, that the reason that Carolyn went to Villanelle in the first season when she was in that Russian prison was to ask her to work for her. And then all of a sudden, the next episode, Villanelle's all of a sudden wants to work for MI6 despite not having any interest in that at all. Visually, great. I loved seeing the two of them standing side by side at the Royal Albert Hall. Very majestic, looking great. But I just thought it was random. And I just thought it was Villanelle trying to make sense of what to do next. Like, oh, maybe this is something I could do. She said she wants to do spy stuff. She doesn't understand what it is that MI6 does, so she just thought maybe this is something she could do. But the reality is, it's Carolyn knows what she's good for and what that is killing people. She says it herself. She says, well, you want to work for us, you want to kill for us. They don't see that she's more than just a killer.
And Villanelle didn't really think it through, which was interesting. It's like she's kind of floating aimlessly right now. She's not really tethered to much. But I've got an interesting fact. So I wondered why Carolyn specifically mentioned the music. Right. She said this is Marla's 10th. And so I read up on the Marla's 10th.
Me too.
I thought it was so cool. So this was Marla's last completed work.
It wasn't complete, though. He didn't finish it.
No.
Before he died, right?
Yeah, so I think he wrote the majority of it. But I was reading what, like, other reviewers said about the piece. And one quote I got, it's described as love of earth, living in peace before death comes. And that's by Alban Berg. And then in letting go, we have gained everything, reinforces that Villanelle wants to find her final resting place and not sure where that is. I just thought that whole, with the music, because I was thinking about the music before researching on it, and I was like, okay, I don't know if I like it or not, because it was nice and warm, and then at times it was like, this is kind of disturbing. I don't know if I like it, but I think that's what it is that it sounds welcoming, but it's kind of scary because it's that final kind of calling to death or final place. That whole thing, the whole sense of that episode, that scene was Villanelle trying to find her space, her resting place, and not knowing where she belongs.
Yeah, she doesn't, her heart's not in this. She just was like, oh, I had this opportunity a few years ago. Let me just see if it pans out. And it didn't.
She was quite brutal, well, blunt.
She was very blunt.
As she normally is. She was just blunt and said, well, what else are you good for, really?
Yeah. Carolyn also tries to get information from her because she asks who killed Mo, and Villanelle had no idea what she was talking about. So Villanelle for Carolyn is someone who she doesn't take too seriously, only for information.
Yeah.
She sees her as this killing machine and nothing more, which has been kind of the theme with a lot of people with Villanelle, with Dasha having the same thoughts, and this is they all see her for what she can do, but not who she is.
Yeah,
which is how Villanelle and Eve sort of
well,
is different. But that's
Villanelle is just dehumanized.
Yeah,
she is a machine, and she does a certain job, and that's all she's been viewed as.
Ironically, this is the season where she's been humanized.
Like so much more relatable. Because that scene was kind of heartbreaking when she was rejected, and you saw that rejection in her face. And I was like, oh, no one's ever really said no to you, have they?
But the next scene is at the hospital. We are still in Scotland. We've got Constantine being tended to by a nurse. He wants to leave, but she says no, essentially. But he does that thing that they do in all of the movies where he just takes out all of his
just rips it out like, it's all fine.
I'm out of here, sister. And then he's fully clothed and he goes to see Dasha. And what did you think of this conversation?
I thought it was so funny because they sounded like two parents arguing about their child.
And yeah, that's exactly what I thought as well.
And it's always like, well, you didn't take care of her properly. Well, neither did you. And it's that like typical
divorced parent situation where one parent was blaming the other for, well, in this case, it was for making her soft, is what Dasha was saying about Constantine.
And, you know, Constantine trying to justify, well, no, there's a certain way to handle her and to manage her. And yeah, that typical conversation. And
then essentially what it leads to is Dasha getting deaded. Yeah.
But I wonder, is she actually dead? Because they don't really want to kill people off this season.
No one seems to die if you're over 40 and are white. Is what I learned.
It's so true. Poor Mo.
Oh, Mo. Mo money, Mo problems. No, that doesn't work. But, yeah, that whole conversation was... We learned a lot, but we learned nothing. Because she talks about how she tried to kill Villanelle back in the day. They don't explore that. She talks about wanting her son with her and how she wants to go back to Russia, and it pretty much shit on our theory that she was doing all of this to just get back at Villanelle. It was actually because she wanted to go back to Russia.
That's it.
But then it just further sort of showed me that her character was very pointless, like much of the new characters this season. I'll talk about that more. But yeah, she seemingly dies and Constantine just walks off.
Like, that whole scene happened, and I was thinking, why is no doctor or nurse around?
Yeah, like, they just, no one cared.
No, like, this man just pulls out all these needles, unhooks himself, and goes over to another bed, and nobody sees anything.
They're very busy.
Yeah, I'm sure that is a true thing. Hospitals are very busy.
Yeah, particularly now, but yes, they are very, they didn't care about these Russian folk in this room.
Oh dear.
So yeah, Dasha's dead, supposedly. And now the next scene is the big scene. It is the dance scene. I was surprised that this happened so quickly, that they were going to meet up again.
Yeah.
Because there'd been essentially 4 episodes where they hadn't seen each other, because it was episode 3 where they had the bus scene, and then they saw each other briefly at the end of episode 7 on the train. And then all of a sudden they're just like texting, come to this dance hall.
Yeah, and that meet was so
casual,
like, oh, hi, like, they're meeting for coffee, like,
yeah, hi, how are you?
There's no chilling, it's all right.
I mean, I guess a lot had happened within those 4 episodes. Villanelle went to her motherland and killed her mother.
Yeah.
And then Eve thought she lost her husband. So a lot did happen, but yeah, it just feels like they're both tired, isn't it? Like
I felt it. I felt their tiredness.
They're very tired. So
like there was no room for game playing or bullshit.
No time for pleasantries.
Let's just get to it.
let me walk in while you're having some sort of existential crisis, Villanelle. Okay, cool. But it's interesting that Eve notices it straight away. She can see that there's something very wrong and different about Villanelle, because she's very spaced. She's looking around at all the people dancing, and you can see it in Eve's eyes that it's not.
She's worried.
Something's different. Yeah,
because Villanelle talks about, oh, this is the first place I killed somebody, and it's like that kind of reminiscing of, oh, this is how my life has been.
She gets very nostalgic, isn't it?
She does, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. It's almost like someone kind of on their... I had this whole sense of death this episode. It's like someone on their deathbed recounting their life, and, oh, this is the first time I did that, and this is how my life's turned out. And then she talks about, should I have been an interior designer?
What would have happened? What her life would have been like had she not been a killer?
Yeah. Something I have to mention, her suit was stunning.
Oh, man. We could talk so much about all of her outfits.
But this episode in particular, I was really... When I only noticed it the second time around, the first time I was like, oh my god, beautiful. But the second time I noticed the suit in itself matched all the colours of the ballroom. Like, exactly. And
is it because she wants to blend into it, or because...
But it was such a stark, contrast between blending in and standing out at the same time. Because the same thing happens as, when she wears that yellow coat, and that scene where she's walking to the office and it has an eagle-eyes view, and she literally just blends into the concrete. The yellow lines of the parking lines, her hair matches the ground, and it's like, although she stands out, she still blends in. It's almost like she's still a killer, whatever happens. She still blends in and does her own thing.
Yeah, it could also be like she still is unsure about where she wants to be. Like, does she want to blend in and be normal and live this sort of static lifestyle where these people are living, dancing around in this ballroom, very normal life? Or does she want to be this exaggerated, out there, outgoing, disguised still killer? Like, almost like she still doesn't even know. So maybe that's reflective of that.
Because remember, like in season 1, her outfits were so out there, with the pink big dress, the tutu dress, and also that big pink blouse and the skirt and the big chunky earrings. Man, she wears some sick clothes.
It does help that she can pull it off, but
yeah.
I think that makes sense. I think maybe that's what they were going for. She's
unsure of herself.
Because that was very apparent. She was thinking out loud a lot, particularly with Eve.
And that's the first time we see Villanelle asking for another person's opinion, because she's not really interested in what anyone else thinks. And true. I wonder if that's because I'll talk about the Are You From Pinner episode. I wonder if killing off her mum freed up that space to allow someone else in.
Could you say that maybe because Eve and Villanelle are so sort of on the same page right now, that maybe she's just projecting, that because she sees Eve, maybe she sees a part of herself and she's just thinking out loud and seeing if Eve has the answer, maybe that's the answer that she wants.
Who Who knows? Who knows? But it was
Who
a
knows?
really nice scene. I thought it was so tender between the
It
two of them.
was. But what not bothered me, but this is the one thing that always gets me about Eve is she constantly brings up Nico, and she constantly brings up that old part of her life that we all desperately think she needs to get rid of, but she's clinging on to for dear life.
Yeah.
Because she does mention, oh, Nico, Dasha, what did she say?
Mm.
Dasha
I know that Dasha
stabbed
killed him.
Nico,
Yeah.
and tried to blame it on you. Like,
Mhm.
she brings it up, trying maybe to get a reaction, but Villanelle doesn't react at all.
She doesn't care.
It's just it really bothers me every time she brings up the fact that she's married or that she was married. Anything about Nico, maybe just because I don't like Nico, but she's still grasping onto that part of her life, even though so much has happened.
We were saying that Nico is that last strand of her humanity.
Mm.
And I think that's what she's desperately trying to hold on to. Otherwise, what difference is there between her and Villanelle?
I'm just waiting for that moment, whatever it is, that breaks her from it. Because it's been 3 seasons. I thought it would have happened already, but clearly she's clinging on for dear life.
Even though he's telling her to piss off.
Yeah, literally.
Like, take a hint, man.
What did you think the significance of Eve taking the lead and asking Villanelle to dance?
I guess that's a first for Villanelle. She's always been the lead in her own life and in other people's lives, but she allowed Villanelle to take the lead. She allowed Eve to take the lead. Oh gosh.
I was waiting.
But it's that whole thing, like, it brings up the whole sense of power and control, that people think that those in a submissive role actually have no power, but they actually have more power because they are the ones giving you permission to take it and to lead with it.
Yeah.
So
was it Villanelle allowing Eve to have that power, or was it Eve finally getting to that place to show that she has the power?
I mean, why couldn't it be both? That they were both at that stage in their journeys, that the timing was right and their positions were, aligned for once.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, particularly in the last scene, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting because dancing this season, well, I mean, it's shown up in the Mother Russia episode where Villanelle was at her family's house and they were dancing and she was very uncomfortable and we were uncomfortable. But then this episode, it took a little bit, but once they finally got together and started moving, it was the most serene and comfortable that she's been. Like, she seems to calm down.
Comfortable with each other. It was so nice.
I thought that was interesting.
It adds a different dimension to their relationship. It's not just about the cat and mouse chasing, exciting, adrenaline thing. There's also some comfort in small doses, but it is there. They do find some sanctuary with each other at times.
It was also interesting because Villanelle talks about the people dancing around them, and she says something like, "Oh, don't you want to be like that?" And then Eve, interestingly, says, "We would never make it that far." She refers to the two of them as, a thing. She acknowledges that, and she mentions it at the end of the episode, that she sees her future and Villanelle is in it, no matter how weird or unconventional that might be.
It was so tender when they were dancing together.
Yeah, I mean, they've been dancing around each other for like the past 2 seasons, and now they're finally dancing with each other.
Oh, wow. That's so true.
There you go. But yeah, no, she refers to the two of them that they'd never, what did she say? We'd never last that long. We'd consume each other before it gets that far, which is so self-aware.
Because that's what I meant about, like, they're both so enmeshed with each other. They would destroy each other.
Oh yeah, because I think as well at the end of the day they see each other for who they really are. Like there's no bullshitting. They can't pretend around each other.
No, they can't. And that's probably what's most exciting and scary at the same time.
Yeah, because they're both being so vulnerable with each other at this point. Like they're being what they're doing, they're dancing, they're talking. Their conversation is very deep and meaningful, and it's very intimate. Sort of meshed with the dancing. They're very close. They're sort of, they're closing their eyes. It's very, very intimate. Oh, when she gets sad and she like talks about when Villanelle talks about all the people she's killed, and then Eve, instead of like calling her out on it, she's very empathetic. She's like, I know, and I think this is the most level playing field that they've been. Like, throughout the whole series. I mean, every time they've had a conversation, to be fair, they've been very truthful with one another, but this is the most this isn't antagonistic like the other times. This
is just kind of lay all the cards out on the table type of thing. And I think that's what I found so exciting. It's like, okay, we're getting to some real home truths now. And then we had Rianne just turn up and break them up.
Yep. Good old Rianne out of nowhere. Waltzing in her black outfit.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Villanelle tells Eve to leave, but she's protecting her. She gives her a piece of paper. We don't know what it is just yet. Or do we know what it is? I mean, we know what it is, but are we supposed to know what it is at this point?
I don't know. I mean, we know that it's the thing from Constantine.
Yeah, it's
because she took it from his pocket.
She gives her the betting slip, tells her to leave, and then we have another dance, but it's a different kind of dance.
It's so uncomfortable. It was horrible.
It's Villanelle exerting her power by taking the lead herself, and she even dips her and
antagonizing her.
She's antagonizing her.
Yeah, she's just, back to old Villanelle, just poking the bear.
Yep. And then you wanted to talk about the train station.
Yeah. So that train scene was really interesting because we got to see, Villanelle, before a kill again. Which, because recently her kills have just been a bit sloppy and she's not been into it. But then at this point, it's like it's that whole psychopathic kind of reaction to people as she's getting giddy and she's jumping around. And I was like, something's going down. Something is going to happen. But then there's that bit that Rianne says about sheep and wolves. And says, you are a sheep. And that just triggers Villanelle. Like, no, I don't want to blend into the background. I am the wolf in this situation. But this is the first time we see Villanelle apologize before a kill. And you saw that, like you said, like her micro expressions are amazing because you saw that in her eyes. Like she was so conflicted. Like, should she do this? But she couldn't. She didn't have a choice. She kind of had to because she was, insulted.
Yeah.
In her psychopathic brain, she wronged me. She has to die.
Sure. There's a point as well where Rianne says that autonomy is overrated. And I wrote that down because that's clearly something that Villanelle strives for. She wants, like your sheep, she doesn't want to be a sheep.
Nope.
So clearly it triggered something in her that she had been going throughout this whole season. And that's what sort of triggered her into doing this kill. Because, she did hesitate a little bit, but she knew it had to be done.
Yeah. And then there's that whole Spartan kick into the track.
Oh my god! The only thing that bothered me about that was that why was there no people around? I get that people got
station.
off, and why was it? It was busy. People got on the train. People got off the train, and all of a sudden there was no one else.
It's like at the hospital. It's like
no one's around. They just don't care.
The only thing I kept thinking, I was like, this is Bank Station. That place is never dead. The amount of times I've gone to Bank and I've been squished up by people.
Oh, God.
The time of day.
What did you think the significance of the conversation that they had about clothing was?
Well, that's the whole thing we were saying. Like, Brienne was saying she needed to be comfortable and blend in, and Villanelle just had to stand out. She needed to look good while doing what she was doing.
What did she say? I was trained to look devastating.
Which she is. I thought that word was perfect for her. She was devastating in every sense of the word. And like the mundaneness of a train station against her suit was just brilliant.
Oh man, yeah. Really,
I loved it.
It's just her whole demeanor during that whole scene, the jumping up and down and
yeah. But this also triggered, remember with the ghost that Villanelle got very envious of, because there was another killer who managed to get in there, do it silently, blend in the background, do the kill and get out. Whereas Villanelle, she needs to go in, she needs to make a scene and sure that people know it's her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another one of that. Like, she's not going to blend in. She needs people to know who she is.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's because of her fear of getting lost.
That makes sense, yeah. Because that's already happened to her.
Yeah.
She got put into that orphanage, She
needed to stand out. She needed to be seen. And if she's not seen, does she exist?
It reminded me as well, this fight, of the fight that she had in Amsterdam when she was in the bathroom waiting in line, and then a woman cuts in, and then she kind of freaks out, and then she's beating her up and she strangles her. It was very similar, the way that she sort of held her up by the throat. The only difference was there was no Constantine to save her from killing someone that she technically shouldn't have.
Yeah. But it's about being wronged. This person wronged her and she had to react. But these are all like self-defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
Any sort of move against her means death for her.
Yeah.
So she has to kill the other person off.
And she did.
Yeah. I'm glad. I really didn't like Rianne.
Bye-bye, Rianne. She was under 40, so she's dead for sure.
And I was wondering, it's like, is that all her role is then?
I got so much to say about these random season 3 guest
characters.
Stars.
Yeah.
They're just so pointless.
I thought there was going to be there's going to be a whole like arc for her. Like I didn't get it.
Speaking of useless characters, the next scene was Carolyn and Geraldine.
Oh man. I can't.
I mean, what did you think of her process of speaking about her feelings towards her mother? What did you think about?
It's such a therapeutic thing to do, like to advise your client, maybe you should write a letter and read your letter to your mum. It's definitely, maybe she's seeing somebody, but it felt like, oh, okay, someone's given her some CBT homework to do. And she's doing it. I love that Carolyn wrote nothing.
She's like this, okay, so Geraldine, please leave my house. Empty page.
And I love what Carolyn said. She was like, do you want a round of applause? Like, what do you want me to do? And it kind of links to this whole thing we say, like, Geraldine's a bit performative.
Yes.
Whenever she expresses her feelings. It's like inauthentic. I don't know if she is being inauthentic, but it just doesn't feel real to me.
Yeah. I feel like her involvement in this season was really just a way to get Carolyn to see how she is as a parent, and how when she figures out towards the end with what happened to Kenny, how her actions or how her work was a catalyst in having Kenny be killed. Almost like Geraldine is there to hold up a mirror in front of Carolyn to see the error of her ways, or how she is as a parent and as a person.
But I thought it was so significant, that empty notebook, because we will never know what goes on in Carolyn's mind.
This is very true.
And to be honest, that is the purpose of her job, that we don't know what she's planning or thinking.
I mean, yeah, because in the showdown bit with Paul, towards the end, you sort of realize, we'll get into it a bit more, but you realize what she wanted out of it, and once she got it, she was done.
Mm-hmm.
She's very one-track minded, isn't she?
She is. Almost like she's got a tick list in her head. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because-
I didn't. Yeah, Geraldine really is grating on me.
Geraldine was a waste of space, but you can see why she was brought in, but it just felt like a waste, particularly because with that actor, I felt I like her, but she didn't really bring much.
I was like, there could have been so much you could have done with Yara. But I don't know, they just made her into this like wet blanket.
Whiny.
Yeah.
Kind of stupid, naive.
And I thought, okay, she can't be this silly, but she is that silly. Unless this is a whole big plan where she's working for the 12.
If she comes back next season, then clearly there was a plan for her. But if she doesn't come back, then it just seemed a bit whatless, in my opinion. Particularly with her having that weird thing with Constantine.
I did not get that. I mean, it would all make sense if she is like from a different sector working on this case, overseeing Carolyn. But that's such a long shot.
Yeah. I think that would be the only way to save it, but in reality, I think she was just there to be this annoying.
They needed somebody to humanize Carolyn during this grieving process, but she wasn't. You know, it was interesting to see that conversation she has with Geraldine, where she had a special connection with Kenny, but her dad had a special connection with her because they were similar, and I quite like that because she was. You don't really. You sometimes feel like you're not allowed to say that as a parent.
You're not. If my mum said that to me, I would be very upset.
It's not allowed. It would break that. The glass would just shatter because I think kids do know who they can turn to. They really talk to. But once it's said, you can't turn back from that.
It's that thing where when you're younger, you ask your parent, who, if you have siblings, who do you love more? You don't want that. A part of you wants them to say you, but the other part doesn't want them to say it's not you, if that makes sense.
It's kind of,
like you don't want your parent to be like, oh no, yeah, I like your sister. Like that's not.
That would be horrible.
No, that's not a thing. But Carolyn does it, and she doesn't care because she knows she's very self-aware.
Because Carolyn doesn't think about how her words affect other people.
No,
there's no sense of empathy, and I think that's kind of what I saw in this episode. It's different degrees of empathy shown by all the characters. You know, Villanelle is, turning a leaf. She's becoming empathetic and talking to Eve and understanding her position and things. And Carolyn, she comes across as a different type of psychopath.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, no. I hate that saying. Yeah, no. The next scene is the betting shop scene.
Yes. And I wondered, this is such a strange scene.
It is. It's Eve being a terrible detective and spy, yet getting what she needed regardless.
It's like she just stumbles through things, but it just works out.
Tallulah Shark, shall we say? She comes into this betting shop with her betting slip, not knowing what it means. So she goes to the teller and she places a bet. But it doesn't exist because it's Bruce, something with Bruce, basically. Bruce.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Eve tries to bribe her. It doesn't work.
That was so funny. Dave, do you see what she's doing?
She's trying to bribe me, Dave. And then, lo and behold, there's a picture frame with a man named Bruce, of course.
I mean, of course. This had to be easy for Eve.
It is the owner. So she asked to see the owner. The teller calls the owner. It's easy as that. She just goes upstairs.
Just waltzes right into his room with him in his foot spa.
And the one thing that I got from this was his reaction to her, because he clearly doesn't believe that she's someone who could be working with the Russians. He
Mm.
sees this woman in her parka jacket wearing
Mhm.
comfortable shoes, and he thinks there's no way she could be involved with these bad people.
Well, he says like not a lady like you.
And then she says, I'm not a nice lady.
Yeah,
Which is very true.
she is not. But that whole sense of Eve always being underestimated.
What is that saying? A wolf in sheep's clothing?
Yeah, yeah. Which could easily describe Eve.
Yeah.
But
because they don't know what she's capable of. Let's not forget she murdered someone. Even if the show won't mention it, she killed someone.
And she's forgotten about it.
Oh yeah, she's not traumatized it, but at all.
No, she's not struggling at all. That was they've just pretended like it's never happened.
Yeah. There's a lot that they've forgotten that's happened. Even Villanelle don't talk about their kiss.
No. It's just like it's happened, it's in the background, whatever. So this really stuck in my head, and I don't know why. But why did they talk about the fern on the TV? And if you don't wrap it, it freezes to death. I was like, this seems so poignant. Why mention this?
There has to be a reason. They don't add things for nothing. I didn't pick up on that, so you should have figured that out.
Well, I've been thinking about it. Thinking, he talks about protecting these ferns during the winter, and I was wondering, is that what the next season is? It's like winter is coming. It's coming to an end, and if these characters are not protected enough, if they're not wrapped in their support system or whatever, or in their protective gear, they will die.
Potentially.
It's almost like this next season, Eve and Villanelle really need to keep together. Because if they are they need to protect each other, because if they were to separate, they will die. They will freeze to death.
That makes sense, because we have to remember this episode was co-written by the season 3 showrunner and the now season 4 showrunner. So she has to know where she wants the season to go. So if something was put in there, it was put in there for a reason. You can only hope.
Yeah. I was just, that really stuck in my head, that whole fern thing. I was like, why? Literally, this big scene's happening, and you're going to talk about this documentary you're watching about ferns.
Yeah. No, it has to mean something.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's that it's of things to come.
Potentially. We'll see next year or 2 years, whenever it comes out. Who knows? Thank you, COVID-19. So we're at Bitter Pill. This is one of the things that annoyed me. How could you have a whole season? Right, you're talking about these Haribo Tang Fastics. They're dropping it in left, right, and center. And then how do you realize how many months have gone past that you had a camera set up to try and find out who was stealing these sweets? And then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe this might help.
And they didn't tell anybody. I thought that was
really
so
bothered me.
Dumb. I was like, why are you making this so convenient for people? Like,
it was so contrived. It was unnecessary. I mean, it was necessary to move the plot forward, yes, but it really bothered me how it was just out of nowhere. They had their computers raided before as well, so how did they miss this? And how did he not think to check that in the first place if he had that computer running bare?
It just felt very lazy.
It did. That bothered me.
Yeah, so it's much. we need to move the story along. Let's just say there's a camera in there.
There's a camera in there, and it picked up Kenny stealing these sweets, as well as, oh, wait a second, Constantine is there the day he died.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I hated that. I really didn't like that.
I think I remember actually shouting at the TV, "Are you serious?"
It read as being super lazy.
Yeah, it did. That's how I felt.
A lazy way to put Constantine in that space and then have him be the number one suspect. But speaking of Constantine, he makes his way to the betting shop where Eve is exit in with the, oh, we forgot to say she got into the locker
Yeah,
or
and she
safe,
just
and it was a bag of something she didn't know, and Constantine happens to be there when she leaves. I like this Eve. I want to see more of this Eve, the playful, antagonistic Eve. She's very much acted like Villanelle, but it's the most personality that we see of Eve in a very long time.
Definitely. And also we see Eve get excited,
Yeah,
which I've never really seen.
she's always trying to find something out, or someone's trying to kill her, or there's always such drama around her. But when she's this playful, because we saw a little bit of that with her with Bill in season 1. We saw her more with Bill. Season 2, not so much. It was more Villanelle being that kind of playful person with Eve, and Eve being the kind of like
scared, timid type.
Straight man with rolling her eyes at silly Villanelle. But we need more fun Eve.
Yeah, and I think now that Eve slowly has kind of shredded her past life and embracing this new life, I'm hoping we get to see a more interesting Eve.
Oh, I hope so as well. Because she's taken such a backseat this season. It's ridiculous. We know more about Villanelle than we do about Eve.
Because it is, the show is called Killing Eve. But I think we needed Villanelle to develop and grow this season.
But not at the expense of Eve.
Well, that's the thing about their relationship. It's always at the expense of the other. It's not like they're going to be compatibly, growing together. I don't think their relationship allows for that kind of space.
Then they're never truly equal.
No, which is why the episode is called "Am I Leading or Are You?" Because they'll never know.
I like that. I also like that. I mean, the Russian doll was a very obvious choice of thing. It, in my opinion, it signified all of the different organizations that Constantine was working for. There's so many that he's working for he doesn't even know anymore. Basically, he tells her that what's inside is a barcode that leads to another safe that has passports and money for him and his daughter, and potentially Villanelle to run away.
Yeah.
And he wants it back from Eve, but she won't give it to him because Villanelle gave her the
strict instructions.
And she's abiding by that. Which is what leads us to Villanelle going to Bitter Pill in her beautiful yellow dress.
It was a coat. It was like an overcoat because she was wearing trousers.
Oh, was she?
Okay. Yeah. I really loved this jacket, and I was thinking, could I pull this jacket off? But no, I think I just look like a weird doll.
I think it's because it's very wide.
Yeah.
And we're wide women.
We
have hips that don't lie, so it would just accentuate that. So it wouldn't suit us, but it suits Villanelle.
Oh my god, that colour though. But yeah, and that scene where she's walking into the office and that she just blends into the concrete.
Yeah.
I loved that so much. What did you think of this episode? I was expecting a bit more. Not episode, the scene.
Scene.
The scene, yeah.
In what ways were you expecting more?
I don't know, because the trailer, the promo for this episode really highlighted the scene. I thought something really big was going to happen.
I mean, I stopped expecting things from the show midway the season, so I didn't expect much, to be honest. I liked the interaction that she had with them. I liked how scared they were. I liked that they figured out who she was because she told them that kill wasn't mine. That wasn't me. It just seemed what was the point of her being there? And that there was no real point. She could have been anywhere, but there was she could have been just over the phone, and it could have been. It just felt like a way for her to interact with these people and to have a little laugh. It was a way
for her to validate Eve. Really, that's what I felt. They because Eve talked about how she has this, connection to Villanelle, and I don't know, they kind of almost don't take her that seriously about it. And I felt her going to the office and scaring them was almost like, oh shit, Eve's in serious business.
Mm.
I wonder if it was like, I don't know. It's like that kind of, you know, when you're in a, like, you have these toxic relationships and the partner turns up at work to really assert their presence in their partner's life. Like, yes, I am the partner, I am here, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. But then their reaction to her was pretty, like, instant.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't really do anything quite. She was just sat there. She ate the sweets.
Mm.
I think they already knew the magnitude of what she was, but I guess maybe seeing it was a bit more of a validation.
Yeah.
And then when Bear sees her, he wonders out loud what she does with the penises, and I did love that scene where she goes up to them and she's like, what did she say? She pickles the good ones, and then the bad ones, you don't want to know about the bad ones. And then just her, when she goes from that sort of sinister, soft voice, she just goes, "Oh, this is fun, guys!" Really loud and obnoxious. Oh,
I
so
love
weird.
it because it's like, it's so disarming, and it's like that kind of speech really destabilizes you. Like, oh shit, okay,
Yeah.
I can't read what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
But I love how that in this whole season, the common thread is Tangfastics.
Oh yeah. I mean, Haribo's product placement is
Amazing.
their sales must have gone through the roof. I mean, who knows? But I am a fan of the Tangfastic, to be fair.
I am not so much. I just like the original Haribo. I don't like sour things.
Oh, I love them. They're great. I wouldn't die for them, but they are great.
Yeah, but that was funny. I think it injected a lot of humor into this episode.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Killing Eve does, to be fair. Like, that's one thing that they've kept throughout the seasons, is they're able to cut the tension with a bit of humor. And then the phone rings. Villanelle's phone rings, and who is it?
Constantine. And it's like, it's interesting because although it's such a serious thing that's happening, all I see are like these typical family interactions. Like, can you like tell your other half to like give me what I need? You know?
And I love how smug Eve was at the end. She was just like, she told you to let me keep it, isn't it? She said to keep it to me, isn't it? That's what I miss about Eve. Her being funny. Being like a little shit.
Yeah, just having a personality.
That's what it is. She's lost so much of her personality. Fucking hell. So much. It's because she hasn't got any friends to bounce off.
She doesn't. She has no one to talk to. So I wonder what's going to happen next season. Because if it's just her and Villanelle, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be interested in that so much. I mean, there is Carolyn, so
it depends on what role Carolyn plays the next season as well. To be fair,
yeah.
But I think it just bums me that they killed off Kenny, because he was the only one that Eve could really talk to about everything.
I know, and I loved Kenny. I really did.
Poor Kenny. Rip, Kenny. Rip.
Yes. And then we move on to this big showdown.
Oh yeah, because Constantine's other phone rings after he gets off the phone with Villanelle, and it is Paul who tells him that he knows that Constantine took the money and that he has to go to his house so they can talk. And then the camera pans out and there is a gun to his head. Who is holding that gun?
So after all this detective work, it was Constantine that took the money?
Yes.
God, I was so annoyed about that.
I thought Paul already knew, to be fair, but clearly he did not. I'm
just expecting people to have some, not a second agenda. Like there's an overarching agenda, and there's another agenda going underneath that. That's you know.
I think what it is we were expecting there to be this massive conspiracy. The
Mhm.
reality is it was just all under our nose the entire time. It was Constantine just being his sneaky self.
I mean, it was the simplest answer, and we didn't want it to be the simplest answer.
No, because it took so many episodes to get there, so now it just
Mhm.
feels like a waste of time.
Yeah, I felt like after all that, you know, there isn't another mole, and it was just Constantine, and it wasn't some big ruse.
The next scene is Paul's house,
Mm.
where Eve and Constantine end up going to, and we find out it's Carolyn who's holding the gun to Paul.
Mhm.
So we see that it's Carolyn holding the gun. She's wondering why Eve is there. She asks, "Why are you here?" And Eve says she's helping Villanelle. And
Of course.
Carolyn isn't really surprised. And then just as she's saying, "Oh, I'm surprised Villanelle isn't here," who walks in? Villanelle.
Mhm.
And it's almost like these two children watching their parents deal with this bad man,
I thought
being
it was
quiet.
so funny.
These just, if you watch their faces and their little interactions in the background, it's just like these two naughty children just like trying to
That's
keep
it.
quiet while mum and dad are talking.
And was just see Villanelle's face was like, oh shit, this is exciting.
Shit's going down.
I
Well,
laughed so hard.
I mean, it was, yeah. Whenever those two interact and it's not filled with like all of this tension, they're just funny together.
Yeah.
There's so many facets to their relationship. This is one of my favorite, where they're just silly. They had a bit of that in season 2 when they were working together. But this was, it was cute, and a very sort of it sort of cut the tension a little bit, because obviously what was happening with Carolyn and Paul and Constantine was very heavy.
Yeah. Like proper heavy.
Because essentially what Carolyn figured out was that Paul works for the 12. This is what she figured out. Paul works for the 12, who is working with Constantine, who now Carolyn knows that Constantine was the last person that Kenny saw before he died, but she wants to know what the involvement of the 12 was. And Constantine tells Carolyn that his version is that Kenny was getting too close to the 12 and he was warning him, because this is a conversation you need to have on a roof, obviously.
Of course, where else are you going to talk about it?
And the only way to save Kenny would be if Kenny worked for the 12. And because that freaks out Kenny so much, he obviously said no and was backing up away from Constantine because he was scared, and he fell to his death. To which I say bullshit.
Totally. I don't believe him at all.
But what was interesting is that Villanelle, when she chimes in, because they ask, because Villanelle tells Constantine, tell her. And then Eve is like, you killed Kenny, but Villanelle interestingly says Constantine doesn't kill people, he gets other people to kill for him.
He gets other people to do his dirty work.
So does that mean that his words did the dirty work enough for Kenny to fall to his death, or was there someone else there?
Somebody else was on the roof, and I wonder if it's Villanelle.
The way she said, "Tell them," it almost seemed like she knew what had happened,
and I think she was there.
Not in Spain. She was in Spain.
Oh, true.
A lot of that time.
That blows that theory. But people can
Unless
fly.
it was Rianne.
Yeah, maybe Rianne.
She was so undercover, no one saw her.
I don't know. It just felt like such a loose end.
It felt like an afterthought, really.
Yeah.
After the whole point of the season was to find out who killed Kenny, and then when they explained it, it was just, he fell?
He fell, yeah. And I don't want to accept that. I don't want to think that's how Kenny died. I want it to be... I want some form of retribution and someone to blame.
We need a reason why he died.
Yeah, because it seems so useless.
it was really interesting to see Constantine scared.
Mm.
When Carolyn tells him to get on his knees, she's about to kill him, and he's trembling, and there's a silence, and then he just yelps, "Villanelle, do something!"
Oh my god, that was horrible. And then Villanelle like, what?
She's startled. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't do anything. He continues to call for her, and he somehow gets lucky because Carolyn kills Paul, which again, another useless character who brought nothing to the story.
Just used as a pawn in this whole season. I thought that was ridiculous. Unless, is Carolyn planning to torture Constantine because just killing him is not enough?
Maybe, I hope so, because it felt like Paul was brought in to be this antagonistic character for Carolyn, who was there to rile her up, to be someone who would cause her problems, which he did for a little bit, but ultimately it didn't lead to anywhere.
No, I didn't learn anything about the 12.
Constantine manages to get out of it because Carolyn shoots Paul in the head, and then she tells Carolyn tells Constantine to leave. He does. It's weird because I felt like there was a weird switch where he was scared, and then all of a sudden when he got up and then he grabbed the Russian dolls, he kind of went back to, oh, so to Villanelle, you're coming then? Like it almost like switched back to normal, as if he wasn't almost just shot in the head, and then he went off.
Something interesting happened in this whole exchange, because you know when Constantine's on his knees and he's clearly just saying anything to get out of the situation, and he says that he loves Carolyn.
Oh yeah.
And then there's Villanelle like, what the fuck? What? You love each other? It's almost like that child's like, when did this happen? I wasn't aware.
Yeah.
And I wonder in that moment, like, you know, that scene at the end when Constantine says, "Are you coming?" And I felt that sweet, sweet revenge when she turns around and says, "No, you are not family."
Yeah.
And I wonder if it kind of, that was like the last nail in the coffin when he was like so snivelly that he would even use things like, "Oh, but we love each other. I loved you." And she was like, "No, I don't like this guy."
He showed his true self when he was facing death. He did that little thing as well, like he grabbed his heart when she said that. Like, oof, that was a low blow. But I'm glad she got to say that to him, because that's been used against her so many times by him.
Yeah.
The reason why he won't protect her, or the reason why he won't help her, is because she's not family. And she finally got to use that against him.
And does that mean that Villanelle has now found a new family with Eve and Carolyn?
Oh, I don't know about Carolyn. Who knows?
But she's always around. Because
she is always around.
It's almost like she's that just, you know, absent parent type. But they're around.
They are. That's true. She is a constant. This was the return of Cold Carolyn, where she got what she wanted. She got the answers that she thinks she wanted, and she's reverted back to business Carolyn, kind of like end of season 2, when she got what she wanted. Aaron Peel was dead, and she was so cold and so mean to Eve. She was like, you know, you're gonna come back with us to London then? And Eve's just like, no, you used me. And that's almost the same thing that happened, because Eve is pissed because Carolyn basically tells her to stop trying to go after the 12. There's no point. Carolyn essentially says there's no point going after the 12. You won't be able to get anywhere near them. But Eve doesn't like that, and she again freaks out and runs away like she did last season.
We didn't get a real answer of who killed Kenny.
Yeah.
Because clearly no one believes what Constantine just said.
No.
But I don't know, Eve is now just carrying this torch of, and I think that's her justification. The reason she's done all of these things this season is because she had to find out what happened to Kenny.
Yeah.
And if that's not the point, then why is she doing all of this?
She needed an end game, and she hasn't gotten it. But for some reason, Carolyn is fine with that.
seemingly.
Because essentially, she says, I know who killed Kenny. It was me. Like, it was her actions that led to Kenny dying, and I guess for now, seems okay with having that be the answer.
But Eve is not happy with that. She wants to know exactly what happened.
Yeah, so she freaks out. She runs out. Villanelle stays for a bit until Carolyn tells her to go.
And aren't you going to trot her off?
Trot her off. And then she just was like, she just has this phone call with some rando. She's like, oh yeah, suicide. Like, she has so many connections. She's just like, yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I was thinking, how the hell is she going to explain this?
She knows people
in the sense, like, because we saw that scene in a few episodes before when, or just was it last season, where Carolyn has to explain herself to a superior of why.
That was the beginning of this season. That's what I did. Right. She's us to the bridge.
Yes.
We're on Tower Bridge. Eve has run off to it in her beautiful parka. She runs out of breath. She stops by the railings, and Villanelle saddles up to her, and thus begins a very beautiful scene between the two of them.
Oh, this is the most honest conversation between these two. I loved it so much. And it almost felt like a declaration of love.
It was very soft.
It was really soft. It was that completely being seen by the other, by admitting they're monsters. And, Villanelle says, I think my monster encourages your monster.
And Eve says, I think I wanted it to.
I love that, but my gosh, how
beautiful.
How self-aware are they?
Oh, so self-aware. And it's a complete 180 from the last conversation they had in the last season, where it was Villanelle professing her love and her ownership of Eve, and it being more about Villanelle wanting to own Eve. And the "you're mine" was what she literally shouted at her. And Eve telling Villanelle that she doesn't know what love is, and how that has sort of completely turned on its head now, and they're both admitting that at the end of the day, they're the only two that matter right now.
Yep.
Because
on a bridge.
on a bridge. Because it starts with Eve talking again about how what her life used to be, how she sort of turns to the people walking around the bridge, and she's like, this used to be my life. I had a husband, I had a house, I had a chicken, and And Villanelle again sort of calls her out on it, and she says, is that what you wanted? Because she said that in the dance scene as well. Is that what you want? And Villanelle and Eve doesn't say anything because clearly it's not what she wants. It's what she's supposed to want, but it's not what she desires. And that sort of brings them into Villanelle talking about, did I ruin your life? Do you think I'm a monster? And then leading into the whole conversation about their monsters encouraging, that Villanelle's monster encouraging hers.
And I just had a thought that this whole pivotal scene is on a bridge. And what are bridges, essentially? They're transitional places. And is that what this season was? It was a transformational and it's a transition of these characters. Because what we see is, the main thing we saw is Villanelle change and grow in this season. She is, like you said, it's a full 180 to how it ended last season. And is that what this was? This was about Villanelle changing and Villanelle being different. Because what she did in this scene, she would not have done before, which was trying to let Eve go.
Oh, yeah. Also, bridges connect.
Yeah.
This bridge connects, so it's almost like it kind of becomes more of a visual thing at the end when they try to walk away from each other, but essentially they're meeting in the middle for the first time in ever, essentially, because they're on the same page. There's no shouting.
Chose it.
Yes, they both settled there. They're both comfortable there.
And this whole idea of, I think this is like a true testament of Villanelle's love for Eve by letting go, which is kind of circles back to the music in the beginning of Mahler's 10th, which was about letting go and going back to your, going back to the earth, going back to your initial resting place. I had that random thought and I wrote it down like, this episode has come full circle. It's about letting go of the things that you love and hoping that they come back to you anyway.
That makes sense as well, because that Mahler's 10th was unfinished, and clearly they're still unfinished, because we're jumping a bit to the end where they turn around, but clearly they're not finished. There's still more to tell. But we also forgot the part where they both think that they've killed Dasha.
Yeah.
And they're both kind of arguing. It's like, no, I killed Dasha. Like, I hit her with a golf club. And Eve's like, what did she say? I crushed her with my foot. And just like, they would both find that romantic. The only two people in the world that would find that romantic would be the two of them. And that's the second time that Eve has referred to the two of them as a combined entity. She's gone from rejecting the idea of the two of them being anything to twice now admitting that she sees her future, and in her future is Villanelle.
Yeah, I think it's Eve is finally accepting who she is and what she wants, not what's expected of her.
And yet she still is asking for it to stop. Why is she still clinging on to the idea of what normal is?
Well, I mean, think about it from her point of view. She's lived a very normal, kind of mundane life up until this point. And in her, like, I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but in all her life, like, she's lived a certain way and she was expected to do certain things. And now it's totally, totally different and not what she ever expected. So naturally, you would think, oh, shit, is this how my life is going to look from now on? Should I want to go back to what it was? It's too unknown of what the future lies. Whereas when she went with her life before meeting Villanelle, she knew what to expect from life. She knew how that was going to play out. You can't see how life's going to play out this way.
No, but she still sees it with Villanelle in there. No matter how unknown, the only one known, I guess, is Villanelle. That's her constant right now.
That's it, yeah. And that last song was beautiful.
It was very literal.
Yep.
Of what I guess they want maybe potentially to have their future be, you know, what's it? Tell me that you'll kiss me forever, or that you love me. But no, that whole scene, like, again, it like you said, it's them seeing each other. It's when Villanelle asks, "Am I a monster?" and Eve says, "You're so many things." Like, this is the first time that Villanelle has been seen by someone that she cares about, and they're not seeing her as just this killing machine. She's, you know, she says, you're so many things. She doesn't specify, but she doesn't just say, "Yeah, you're a fucking murderer, bitch." She doesn't she doesn't say anything like that.
No, but she's more than that. She
knows that she's more than that as well.
Yeah, she is a person, and I think there has to be consequences to continuously killing, where you end up killing the best parts of yourself, and which left her, you know, as a psychopath, she would have felt empty anyway, but it would have really exacerbated that. That constant killing of other people definitely must kill off parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And this season was like her reawakening to her vulnerable sides, to her, you know, honest side and wanting to connect. You know, it felt like a different Villanelle at the end of this season.
Well, yeah, because she's the one who takes the step. She takes the lead, and she decides, okay, I love you enough to help this, to help you stop feeling this way. I'm going to let you go. So she tells her to stand and look at her. Oh man, it was just so sad when she it's almost like she looks at her, and Villanelle's like she's looking at her for the last time. She sort of breathes it in, and then there's the bit when they're back to back, and it's so small, but she just leans on her,
just tilts her head back.
Like, oh god, it's so small and it's so minute, and like just them closing their eyes and just feeling each other.
Oh, that was such a nice moment. And that particular scene, do you know when they're walking away and then they turn to each other? I had this whole imagery in my head when I was watching the second time round. It's almost like a moth to a flame. But in that moment, who's the moth and who's the flame?
Yeah, because you could look at it a few ways, because Villanelle stops first, but then Eve's the one who turns around first.
Yeah.
But then I noticed as well, when they turn around, they're not fully facing each other. They're side looking at each other.
Right.
So then they're not completely committing to, I guess, acknowledging that they need each other, because they obviously do, but they are acknowledging it. So I'm curious as to what the season 4 premiere will look like, whether them turning around was just them look at each other for the last time and then they go their separate ways, or if they ended up turning fully around and something goes from there. But when I first watched that part, or maybe the second time I watched it, it reminded me of, you know, that performance artist Maria Abramovich?
Yeah.
So she had a, what would you call it, a one of her performance arts back in the day with her ex-boyfriend was that they would be on one side of the Great Wall of China. I think it's called The Lovers. And at this point, they had been together for years. And what the point was that they would be on each end of the Great Wall of China, and they would walk, and they would meet in the middle to sort of signify their love. But during the walk, they realized that they shouldn't be together. And when they finally met, that would be the last time that they see each other, and then they would turn and walk away. And that they hadn't seen each other for years. And it wasn't until, you know, that performance art that she did at the Met or the MoMA.
Yeah, and all these people come to visit her, and then she
just looks at them. That's the first time I think she sees him. And I don't know if you've seen it, but oh my god, just it's so charged.
I mean, as soon as he sits down, it's like her whole body vibrates. And
it's ridiculous. But that, it reminded me of that, the idea of like these two people making the decision to walk away from each other on the Great Wall of China. It's a lot bigger than the Tower Bridge, but that's what that reminded me of, the two of them.
I wonder if they use that as inspiration.
who knows? Could be reading too much into it, but that was the image that I got. It's like,
yeah. I had a wicked thought in the sense that, you know, Villanelle stopped,
Yeah.
but Eve was the first person to turn.
Yeah.
And I had this horrible thought that at the end of the day, Villanelle is a psychopath and she is a master manipulator. And whether she knew, regardless of letting go or not letting go, Eve will always come back, which is why she stopped, because she knew Eve was going to turn.
I will say this: when Villanelle turned around, she did have a little bit of a smug face.
She did. She really did. And I wondered, she played Eve in this moment, surely.
It wouldn't surprise me because they've been manipulating each other so much.
I mean, it would be true to form if she did.
Would. I would hope that she's, with all of the growing that she's done, that it wasn't her intention, but maybe, you know.
I think we're being
is that saying old habits die hard?
But we're also really romanticizing this. At the end of the day, she is a psychopath.
True.
You
but
know?
They made a decision to have us empathize with her so much this season and watch her grow that you would hope that she wouldn't revert so quickly back to her old ways.
I mean, is it really reverting, or is this another aspect of her personality? This newfound vulnerability and empathy is going to be coupled with this manipulation and psychopathy.
I guess because she's not completely changed who she is.
No.
It's just we're seeing more layers of her, so potentially.
That's it. And I just wondered if that played into it, that, you know, because she did look very smug when she turned around.
Very, very smug.
And like, yeah, thinking, was Villanelle really letting go? Or is this a test of loyalty? I will let you go, but I need to see if you actually come back.
I guess we would only know if Eve didn't turn around, how she would have reacted if she didn't turn around, then we'd know.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
this is the most low-key season finale of the all three, because the last two were very all the finales seem to mirror each other, where it always ends with the two of them having some sort of confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
But this confrontation was a lot different, a lot more subtle, a lot more.
Well, it wasn't a confrontation, more of it was a meeting, definitely a meeting in the middle, and the meeting of minds.
One thing that I gathered from this season, or what I took from it, is that basically no matter what happens in terms of the plot or whatever happens in the background with all of these new characters, at the end of the day, it will always end up with the two of them. Because what we learned at the end of this episode was how useless all of the other new season 3 characters were. They didn't really add anything. They were kind of just background noise.
Well, they were fillers. Like, some of the episodes in the season were fillers.
It felt very filly.
It did.
Didn't it?
It did. And that's what I was worried about, that this whole season would be a filler season.
I guess we'd only know for sure when we see what season 4 is about.
But yeah, that was a great ending.
It was.
I loved it.
It was a great song. Very telling.
Mm-hmm.
When I was watching it and watching them walk away, I was like, in my head, they're going to turn around, right? They're going to turn around. It can't end like this. I was like, looking at the time, I was like, oh my God, there's like only a minute left. They have to turn around. Turn around.
God, this is how much we're invested in these two.
So invested. I'm glad they turned around though, but it felt almost like a series finale. Like, if the series ended like that, I kind of wouldn't mind.
No, it made sense, because it's like there's so much opportunity then. But
you could figure it out yourself, like how they end up almost.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how they play out the next season.
Oh yeah, because right now they're on level playing fields right now, aren't they? They both sort of put it out there without actually saying it. Like, they've both admitted that, you know, Eve has pretty much said that her future is Villanelle, whatever that means in her eyes, and we all know how Villanelle feels about Eve. So even though they've not really verbalized what it is they mean to each other, they mean something. It's deeper than all of their other relationships.
Definitely.
And they can't let each other go, no
No.
matter how much they hurt each other, no matter how much other people hurt them and manipulate them to hurt each other. At the end of the day, it always ends up with just being the two of them, doesn't it?
Because they're family.
They're all each other has.
They are. And that's what we allow. We allow so much from family. That's the only people we really allow that kind of stuff to cross boundaries.
But no, yeah, I mean they're not blood family, but they are choosing each other essentially. You know, friends are the family you choose.
That's it.
And all that jazz. Although I don't think they're friends.
Well,
who knows what
I like
they
that
don't
we don't
really
know.
They are. No,
I like that there's no label.
no. I think the only person who's really labeled it is Villanelle because she thinks it's love, which I think it is for her.
It is love. We don't need to categorize what kind of love. It is love.
Yeah.
But yes, so that was our thoughts on am I leading or are you?
I am.
We will never know.
We'll never know.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. All that waffle.
They've been dancing around each other for like the past 2 seasons, and now they're finally dancing together, which I thought was very significant, you know?
Wow.
In hindsight, very good episode. I enjoyed it. If I were to rank season 1 finale, season 2 finale, season 3 finale, I'd still do 1, 2, 3, but you know, it wasn't a bad episode. It was just different, isn't it? It was different.
Yeah, it was different. And because the show is different now.
Yeah.
Because I was very close to giving up on Killing Eve this season. Like, it was really bad.
Yeah.
I think this episode really saved it. Now I'm excited for the next season.
So am I, to be fair. So am I. Because I have no idea what they're going to do.
No. But it's the last one, isn't it?
I don't think that's been announced, but I think it should be.
Yeah. Where else are you going to go with this?
Yeah, and I think as well, I don't want to say this, but I feel like Jodie Comer is kind of not outgrowing it, but her career now is sort of. I think she might want the time to do films and not be sort of caught doing Killing Eve for 6 months out of the year. So I feel like she may be the one to be like, you know what? I may have to call it.
It feels like it's ending next season.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know where else they can go.
No, I mean, if they start going on adventures together, I'm going to get really annoyed.
Yeah, they might surprise us, but
I don't want to see that.
I don't know what I want to see at this point. I want Eve to have friends.
We just want her to have a full-rounded life.
I do. I want her to have friends again.
We want Eve to be interesting and funny.
I want Eve to have like a personality again. Yeah.
So maybe in essence, this season really did kill off Eve, and we're seeing a new, alive Eve.
New Eve. We'll see. So that was the series finale of Killing Eve, series 3. 1 month after it aired, but we got there in the end. Who knows what we'll talk about next, but it will be wonderful.
We'll let you guys know. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you later. Bye, guys.